KDA. 2-0, 11.7 KDA on Sejuani. Very impressive numbers. 500 MVP points, so I think that's enough for second overall next to Faker. But if you think about the game scores, JinAir at 8-3. That's 5-0 on Gragas and Sejuani, 3-3 on the other champions that he's played. So will we see targeted bans towards the jungle? Will GBM have something new to debut on this thing? So we haven't seen him for a little while. Has been practicing anything in solo queue? We don't have necessarily the clear answers on that. Will the Yasuo come back? I know I'm a big Yasuo fan, of course, coming over from China, but Yasuo is a pick. Top lane maybe, mid lane, a bit of a risk to run.
That's right. And GBM, there in his fancy bow tie, getting a massage from his Warcraft 3 superstar coach. Sweet. I wish I could get a massage from a Warcraft 3 superstar. I'd go for grubby, though. I'd take a grubby massage.
That joke writes itself there. So, I mean, we asked about the Varus ban. Already the first ban coming out from JinAir is Varus, LeBlanc, and Gragas banned on the blue side. So these are kind of the power picks we were talking about. Will we see Chaser with the Gragas? Obviously no. The Varus ban, and now Victor as well. A lot of mid lane bans. The trends for teams are always kind of individual. Sometimes we see bot lane bans, sometimes jungle, but so far the mid lane is being shredded in the first round.
Very surprising that KOO doesn't want to first pick either Gragas or Ryze in this game. Expect those more to be the red side bans. Now Victor is just, it's banned every game against Kuro. This is what people are afraid of from Kuro. He, again, was the one to really bring Victor into the competitive scene as the originator of that champion selection. He's still very strong on it, plays a ton of it in solo queue, and considered a threat, but his Azir is also very good. Kalista will be the final ban for the JinAir Green Wings, and that should be an Alistar first pick. They're going to take that for Gorilla. Gorilla putting himself on the line, that 100% win rate, but really it's just been Gorilla's presence on the lanes. You know, we were talking about this a little bit earlier, but he's been the reason why the Tigers were able to pick up so many early kills against KT was how much pressure he was putting on the map.
And this was even with MS disadvantages. He didn't have boots of mobility, but was still able to be across the map where he needed to be at the right time, always there for the counter gang, always there to relieve pressure in a 2v2 or 2v3 situation in the top lane. Trace and Chaser, considering their options, probably not going to see the Rengar locked in, but Rumble's been, and yeah, early power spikes from JinAir, that seems to be the name of the game, potentially taking that away from a KOO Tigers team that's looked very comfortable on early power spike champions like the Rumble.
And also, it has to be noted that Trace has played Rumble for the overwhelming majority of his games this season. He's put together a very good KDA, but it's been on a very limited champion pool, so this is just, we see it as a priority pick these days, and they are going to go towards that trend.
Yeah, the statistics not necessarily supporting it. 3-3, but as you mentioned, the KDA very healthy. The Maokai is just given up and not locked in by Trace, despite the fact that it was both available and its highest KDA champion. 3-0 in very recent series. But look, Rumble gives you that mid-game damage pressure. It also gives you so much jungle control. Excellent lane for the Rex side of gang for. So I can kind of understand why the priorities really popped up for Rumble. First or second round pick, basically consistently in the last 2 or 3 weeks.
That's right, and hovering over the Yasuo, please no GBM. We are done with that. Evelyn grabbed 4 Wisdom, and the Maokai, as you were saying, the response to the Rumble in the top lane. So KOO setting up for a very big front line right here. GBM. And it looks like they may be playing for a more late-game composition this time. GBM. GBM is so troll.
He's just showing us the Faker champs. Look, if Faker can play them, why can't GBM? That's probably the question GBM wants to know the answer to. Interestingly, he's not actually going to pick his own champion, although just cycling through, I guess, in this particular situation. Wisdom, his win rate started to pick up. I mentioned during my first cast he was 1-4, now 3-4 after that convincing 2 over KD Rolster. Going for early game junglers. His power in the early game is probably why they've picked him up, why he's in the lineup. And on Eve, that's about as much early pressure as you can really look for in a jungler.
Oh no, the Praven may be coming back. That is always a disaster when it strikes. Blind picking this Kassadin may not be the best decision. GBM certainly has shown Jason Ezreal in the mid lane. And Prey looking for that Lucian, a champion that he has struggled on recently, and actually Prey is going to lock in Vayne.
He's throwing the playbook right out the window. He's going for the Vayne. Definitely not a Trinity Force, at least 1 item power spike. Of course, some players are opting into the Trinity Force. Maybe 3rd or 4th is picking up a Phage and kind of seeing where the game is standing for them. Do they need a Black Cleaver? Do they just go for the Trinity Force for a bit more orb walking and kiting? Also, the mid lane pick up. It's, again, very meta. They go for the Cassiopeia. It's a blind pick, so it's available.
Yeah,
you just go for it.
Very good blind pick. I am actually a bit surprised they didn't take a Zir here, which has been, while KOO doesn't have a good record on it this season, his individual play has been good. Now, they do like to play Yasuo into the Cassiopeia, but it just hasn't looked good. I really hope this doesn't happen again. They did pick up one win on it, but it wasn't because of the Yasuo, really. GBM's good at getting a lane advantage, but the closure to some of these games has been questionable at best, and KT absolutely rolled him, despite him winning the lane in that matchup.
You just look at this lineup, the JinAir. If they do go for this Yasuo, 4 melee champions, Sivir, who has the 500 auto attack range. Okay, good turret damage when you use the Ricochet, but so risky to take any objectives. The Siege almost non-existent, and that's the complete opposite. They understand the fact that their Siege was poor. They go for the Xerath that, look, it's really fallen out the meta in the last couple of months as we've seen Azir versus Cassiopeia at nauseum. What do you take on the Xerath in this comp?
I think it's really bad against what the KOO Tigers are doing here, because who are you going to be able to poke out with his Xerath in the late game? They built up such an enormous front line, and yes, GBM is an excellent, excellent Xerath player. He is the best Xerath player that we have in Korea. That is unquestionable. But he's picking it once again in a meta with this Cinder Hulk. Obviously, Evelyn will be building the Warrior enchant, but in the tanky meta against Alistar, who'll be able to break his CC and get very easily into the backline right here. There's targeted CC as well. Vayne has ways to tumble out of the Xerath ultimate. I just don't see this as a very effectual pick. JinAir really has to do a lot of work in the early game and snowball this extremely hard if they're going to win this.
Yeah, the only justification I can see, excellent lane against Cassiopeia, much like the Azir matchup, able to sit back. Once you get enough AP, maybe the Merlinomicon, and just a bit more AP, you're instant clearing. You're not really at risk of a more medium range mage like Cassiopeia. But in the late game, I completely agree with you. You set up in the back line. Is it the Maokai with the big flank? Is it just Evelyn coming in from invisibility with a flank? Does Alistar just skip past people with the headbutt pole? There's so much backline risk onto the Xerath. How will he reliably do damage in fights?
That's right, and there's no peel either. Well, that's about it. Let's get into game one. Man, the KOO fans are pretty meek today.
It's a Saturday. It's the weekend. I guess, you know, maybe a late wake up. It's 5 p.m., so you'd think they'd be fully rested. GBM rocking the new Xerath skin, but I completely agree with you. He's gone for the lane matchup as far as I can tell. And look, early game power spikes, their dragon control with the likes. If Xerath can set up the Rumble Rek'Sai Sivir, a lot of power. So if they can start monopolizing objectives, snowball can always happen, but yes, a late game where they don't have a big gold lead or a big objective lead where they force KOO into bad decisions. I just don't know how you execute the team fights with the kind of lack of synergy between the Xerath and the rest of the comp.
Yeah, there's a lot of choices here that probably would have been superior, but they are not going to be picked up here by JinAir. And GBM's just going to be on his own trying to dodge out the flanks in the late game, and there's just no one to peel for him. They have a Nautilus. Had this been a Thresh, may have been a bit of a different story, but it's not. And this will be, I think, quite difficult for GBM to actually use this Xerath well as the game progresses.
They have to be very smart with their use of pink wards. Even if they do set up the siege, they're going to need to pink ward all their flanks. We saw very smart moves in, I believe, 2 days ago this series we saw where human wards were used to try and flank for the Evelyn, but pink ward's obviously much more reliable. If Evelyn gets into the backline, okay, the Agony's Embrace won't necessarily stop any of Xerath's damage, but it means very reliably that both Smeb and Gorilla will be joining there in short order.
Well, Prey here on the Vayne. Very interesting pickup for him. He's only played Vayne in his long career 11 times, 6 and 5 overall. And when we think about Prey, we don't really think about him as an auto attack AD carry player, and we never have. He's never been that guy. Think about Prey, we think about Ezreal and Corki and Twitch, and now he's going to be going for that Vayne pickup. Meanwhile, Gorilla 5-0 all time on Alistar, so has yet to lose a competitive game on that champion.
It's a really good KDA this season as well, I believe. Around 10 KDA on the Alistar, 3-0, so It's been a very high priority pick for them. I kind of view Prey a bit like someone like Pilot, who obviously has a much shorter career in terms of top-level play, but again is more of a caster-based AD carry. Pilot 1 and 2 on the Vayne this season, one massive game and then some failings on that champion. Can Prey move out of his comfort zone? We talked about the Corki ban, obviously not necessary. He's opting into Vayne in this game. Yeah,
I am a bit surprised about that. Prey is one of the players that I would have thought least likely to make a decision to go into the Vayne, and again, his positioning on some of these shorter range AD carries like Sivir has been somewhat of an issue. So with Vayne, how's that going to work? There's a flash going in right now. Trace is bounced out of the fight. Smeb also there in the top lane. First blood for Vayne, and that answers that. The lane swap. All of a sudden, everyone showing up. Captain Jack going to respond by fast pushing.
And KOO, look, they initiate the lane swap. You can tell by sending their bot lane to the top lane, then really smart with the jungle follow. So 4 members, including the flash, expended by Alistar to pick up first blood. It was very good pathing from the jungle and top lane duo, and gets them a nice advantage in the Vayne rolling.
Yeah, and right now, too, they knew that Chaser was on the top side of the map taking his red, so that enables Smeb just to immediately TP to the lane. Trace's TP is down, so this is a really good start for Smeb. Assist, keeping his TP up until he can actually use it to immediately respond to the laning phase. Now, KOO just going to camp this. Oh, boy.
Alistar not quite in range for the headbutt. I agree, in most scenarios, you can't teleport to that bot lane from threat of being dived from a clumped minion wave, but having that extra information allows him to teleport to bot, pick up the much-needed farm. Smeb doesn't lose much and gets that kill and experience advantage.
It was a lot of experience, too. It was a very large wave in the bottom side. It's translated to a level edge for Smeb right now, so everything going the KOO Tigers' way. And I love to see this from the Tigers, because when we look at them as a team, when we talk about their big run last season and their strengths, their mid-game side wave control, their team fighting, their shot calling in the late game has all been top tier. It has dug them out of numerous deficits, of numerous holes. But it's been their early game where they have to find themselves in that hole in the first place, where they constantly have to play from 5, 8K behind. As Kuro right here, Chaser under the tower. That's going to be some nice poke. And not a dead Cassiopeia. The turnaround. Wisdom comes in to deny that one. GBM no ult yet to finish off that kill, and Chaser pays for it.
Very aggressive to go for an engage like that on a champion that relies on hitting those line skill shots like GBM on this Xerath. Wisdom is in the right place at the right time. Trying to equalize some pressure by getting some pressure onto the mid lane by picking up a kill. Now increases the early game snowball. Things looking great for KOO.
Yeah, absolutely. This is just going to help them even more in terms of scaling into that late game. And here's a question that's going to be answered. Can KOO hold off and make the right decisions when they're not playing around early dragons, early power spikes, because they can't now? Vayne, Cassiopeia, Maokai, they need items, they need levels, they need time in order to work.
Exactly. They haven't opted into the likes of their Corki Rumble combinations that just monopolize early dragon control. It's something different from KOO, but KOO, again, rocked KT Rolster in their previous series, now showing something different. They've got that mechanical skill from playing all that solo queue, now also with the very smart early game strategies to complement what was always traditionally a strong late game. They're setting themselves up for success, and they're playing the long game and just developing their style rather than just relying on some of the virus Corki that we saw in their previous series.
Yeah, and again, you have to wonder about this JinAir team who continues to rely on somewhat gimmick picks or picks with very limited usefulness in terms of their timing or in terms of the fact that you have to create a big snowball for them to be very effective. Just not playing a really conservative style that lends itself to a lot of versatility. The Yasuo has been a problem this season. The Varus Vayne combo has been a problem for them this season. And now the Xerath making a return, a pick that JinAir, after seeing so much success with it early in the spring when Xerath was a strong pick, just can't get rid of. They can't let it go.
KOO have shown that there are ways to beat these early power, late game power spike comps. Like, ironically, the one they're running here, you can beat a team like the Cassiopeia Vayne, where there's a lot of backline damage with even this low dive. Because remember, JinAir don't really have anyone that can pull off the flanks that we're threatening the Xerath within the late game. We talked about how Maokai, Evelynn, Alistair, all going to be the case of the Xerath. When we're talking about Vayne damage with Cassiopeia denying any sort of backline threat with the Petrifying Gaze, there's no Hecarim's. There's only the Rumble to lay down damage and no other true backline threat. So if you monopolize the Dragon, maybe you can get things done if you're JinAir, but it's so risky. It's so execution focused, which we've criticized KOO for picking, and now it's JinAir that's more on that side.
Yeah. Definitely Wisdom will be seen by the Tremor Sense right here. They want to set up for this Dragon. They push Captain Jack out of lane. Smeb doing that by himself, actually. And that's going to mean this Dragon not really an option to contest by JinAir unless they really want to go all in for it. But Captain Jack just has to take a breather, head back to the fountain, and Dragon number 1 all ready for KOO. And the number of ways that JinAir can actually win this game are dwindling dramatically, considering they need that early Dragon control to force out the poke that they have on their composition. Them not taking it means that KOO has a lot more wiggle room as Wisdom just goes on to GBM, gets stunned actually.
The fast feet from Wisdom. Still
nice forward for the Q. Arcano Pulse claims a victim as GBM really commits to that one and gets double buffs after it. This is why GBM is very dangerous on this champion. We've heard all these stories from GBM talking in some of the shows here on OGN about how with his Xerath, he individually studies his opponents. He looks at film. He notices their tendencies and memorizes them. Which way do they juke? How do they juke skill shots? And that's one of the factors that's made his Xerath ultimate so damn accurate. 2 out of 3 right there, and then the follow-up flash Q.
And the last player to make bold claims like that was, of course, Madlife on his Blitzcrank, who always talked about watching tape to pick up the tendencies. Applying that to a champion like Xerath can help you in the laning phase. We speculate that's a pretty good lane. He's overtaking it 10 CS up, and now also picking up the kill. But just internalize this, Monte Cristo. A team comp with Rumble, Rek'Sai, Sivir, even talking about the Xerath in the early game, couldn't afford, had to opt out of fighting the first Dragon. That's already a bit panic stations when we talk about win conditions coming into late.
Yeah, absolutely. Now they're going to try and take this blue buff away. Chaser forces the flash out of Kuro. Equalizer goes down. Wisdom caught between a barbecue and some lightning. And that'll be his end right there in the jungle. So good movement by Tracer on the map. Smeb still wants to contest this right here. They want another blue buff for GBM.
Calling over Chase. Now it's going to releash. Of course, the 10 leashes, I believe, have been maxed out. Smeb's going to poke around. Will he be able to pick it up? No, of course, won't be able to with the high base damage on the Q from Xerath. So, look, this is the fights they're contesting for. They chose to give up the first Dragon, but then kind of gifted and engaged onto Wisdom after he was just too aggressive in lane. Showed himself on Evelynn when there was no real need to, and now roasted, as you mentioned, by the Rumble on the blue invade. Wisdom's kind of just being too aggressive, too alpha, and paying for it.
Right, and in spite of that, JinAir is still going to be behind in gold here, so the Tigers still going to be comfortable in this situation. And we can talk about GBM Xerath individually, even when Cinderhulk hit and the tank meta came through. We oftentimes see when he picks Xerath, he'll do very well on his own in a game, but when it comes to the ability to make an impact in the mid and late game, this Xerath is so difficult to use right now. We've seen JinAir lose games with Xerath where GBM doesn't even die. And he certainly is great at this champion. It's just about its effectiveness right now. And the differences that came out once we have all these big tank items, big tank junglers, even Kuro getting the Abyssal Scepter first, somewhat of a new build. It's Rose with Cinderhulk.
And look, lane phase, we expected to do well, maybe not as well as it just was pulled off, to have a 20 CS advantage, of course, most off the back of the kill. This is going to be a really aggressive engage. This is a twisted advance. Do they have enough damage to take down Trace? He's not doing any damage to them, but Wisdom, after the 2 deaths, he doesn't have that extra health. He's not tanky enough, and they have to back away.
Yeah, they do, but they still maintain the control of that lane. A couple pots still for Trace, be able to heal up somewhat, but you can go for another gank right here if you want. Looks like Wisdom is just going to leave the lane. Smeb trying to pull some tricks and hide right here, see if he can convince Trace that he has actually recalled.
The identity of this lane between Rumble and Maokai in terms of who wins has always been a bit questioned. It feels like if with no jungle influence, Rumble often runs away with the lead, but Chase is going to come in. There's no equalizer. They don't realistically have the damage takedown. Catalyst, Smeb, they're doing a lot though.
Well, he didn't pop his ult until pretty late right there. Meanwhile, Jack forced to use on the hunt and heal and flash to get out of some shenanigans. Gorilla burning his flash, so it looks like he just got flash pulved.
And now the issue, this is what happens when we talk about Vayne versus Sivir. Blade the Ruin King already completed by Prey. The kill pressure is immense in that situation. Just the Blade the Ruin King being blown, both summoners and the ultimate being used by Captain Jack. Suddenly, Jack can only really hope to wave clear from distance with the Q and then have to move away from lane because the solo kill pressure from Prey onto Sivir is very high.
Look at how the top lane's been going too. Smeb really opening up a very large CS lead, and a lot of that's coming from the fact that he got that big advantage because of the gank early on and then his ability to teleport and collect that wave. So he's maintaining a pretty large lead, and you know that's probably all of the gold is the difference. The overall gold, rather, is the difference between Smeb and Trace right now, and that is huge when we're talking about a very bursty team composition like JinAir and the Maokai being pretty darn fed already.
And 40 CS advantage, and I was mentioning it before, traditionally with no, if you just, 1v1, no junglers involved, Rumble should win this lane. Junglers becoming involved, getting that snowball catalyst suddenly, no real solo kill pressure coming through from the Rumble. You can run away with this lane if you're Smeb. He's able to do that. He's been able to do that traditionally on many champions like the Gnar. And look, Equalizer-centric will be the build coming out from Trace. That's what we're expecting regardless. So there still is the potential that the very low item floor from Rumble could be relevant in the fight, but we're talking about perfect execution on multiple members.
And not only that, Dragon's up now. Trace's TP is down. Smeb's is up. This is another really good time for KOO to make a play onto a Dragon here. And they're going to walk right over to it as Kuro starts to push up. See if Wisdom's going to get down into that Dragon pit anytime soon. They certainly have an opportunity for a 4v5 right here.
Wisdom's on the top side of the map. They haven't prepped Vision around. In fact, there's a couple of pink wards available. At least one notable pink ward available. Chaser is face checked by Smeb. They get a lot of damage. Equalizer used.
Yeah, he's going to try and back out right there. There's the Harpoon. Arcane Smash knocks him back, but Smeb in a lot of trouble as the Xerath ult comes in. Flash and Paralyzing Gaze. Doesn't actually find a target. Smeb going back in with his W. Heals because of his passive before going down, but Kuro's going to clean this up. Double kill for Cassiopeia.
Insane that Smeb lived as long as he did and actually won that engage after basically being free hit for about 70% of his health. Really nice Maokai mechanics coming through. During all of this, the Captain Jack gets free time with the bot lane and takes down the turret.
Yeah, and GBM going to be able to clear here from a long range, eliminating the threat of that dive. He has that blue buff, so better use of KOO's time to go take a look at this Dragon right now. It's like Kuro's just going to stay in the mid lane, however. Gorilla with a recall, and they may back off and actually lose this objective. Definitely could have gone for straight for the Dragon instead.
Still really impressive play. GBM has a lot of AP. He was involved in that engage mostly just from the ultimate, but still has full mana because he already had blue buff, freshly shopped with the Large Rod, so can just walk around. They will have the immediate Dragon control. There are wards available for Smeb. He doesn't have home guard boots, and he's already committed to the top lane. Won't have wave control either. JinAir want this first answering Dragon, and they have the most immediate pressure. They should be able to rush it down.
Ping's going down. Looks like there will be a contest here. Gorilla looking for a flank right here. There's the hook onto him. Sivir ult is blown, but so is Gorilla's. And now Prey gets an auto onto Chaser. Wisdom taking position, and everyone from JinAir retreating into the choke where they can use that Xerath poke. Chaser condemned into the wall, and that's going to be a Dragon. Picked up actually by Prey right there. Wisdom didn't even have his smite up for that fight. Gorilla playing Dance Dance Revolution, but can't quite make it through. Prey not going to make a flash over that wall in order to follow up the kill, and they know Wisdom's in there. Tremor Sense has seen him. It's just a ward and a Prey Seeker into the brush, so we'll see if KOO can convert this into anything else. Wow, JinAir gave up ground immediately on that objective, and JinAir trying to draw them into the choke with the Equalizer, with the Xerath. but it didn't really work. Prey and the rest of the KOO Tigers didn't fall for the trap.
If the dragon hadn't been leashed, if it wasn't already at about 2,500 health, maybe you could bait them into walking to the train. So I don't mind the shot calling on either side. Wisdom tries to take down the red buff, doesn't have any immediate help, so Chaser will just back away. I like the shot calling first from JinAir to understand, okay, let's get them in this choke, actually use the Rumble Equalizer with the double magic penetration items. But KOO, they looked at that dragon health, 1,500, someone made that clear call, just rush it down. And of course then JinAir will just completely out of position with the free objective. Equalizer only really used for a hope to zone. Both teams with clear ideas of what to do. KOO, I think, understand their more immediate power and their positioning advantage as the fight develops.
Right, and if you're JinAir, I think that you don't, not only because of what happened, you don't start the dragon, but because you want to get that poke in anyway. So why start the objective when you really just want to have a nice dance around that dragon for an extended period of time, force them to recall, and then take it safely. So I think JinAir not really playing to their strengths. They thought maybe they had that timing window, but I think it's better to be safe than sorry. Just go ahead, get the ward advantage, wait for the KOO Tigers to show up. They were just rushing in too because they were late to the pit.
So I don't have a lot of experience with basketball. I'm going to use a basketball analogy, so I might just completely faceplant on this one. But it feels like rushing down the dragon for this JinAir comp, just with the champions they chose, was a pretty low percentage play, a low percentage shot that they took. And then because they committed to that, KOO just made the clear call and took down the second dragon. So now dragon emerges as a win condition. 2 already taken in the first 18 minutes. I think I nailed the NBA thing. I got the basketball.
Did you nail the NBA thing? Are you going to go over there? Is that? Have you been watching the NBA finals?
I know that they're happening, so I know that the Golden State Warriors are in them. Am I doing all right so far? All right.
Who's the other team?
I'm Australian. Come on, mate. I'm saying mate.
Sure. You do realize that there's a very famous Australian player on the the other team that all of Australia is like really hyped about right now.
So everyone hates me during this conversation. That's what you're telling me.
I just want to get out there. You could claim you're Australian, but actually this is probably the most relevant basketball team to Australia.
I don't know anything about basketball, Monte Cristo. Low percentage shot. I should have just made an NFL line. I know nothing about that as well, but there's a low percentage play there too.
All right, well, KOO not using his ult right there, but not actually catching GBM. GBM flashing and cleansing out of it, however. And now JinAir really wants this outer turret in the top side. Chaser sitting in a ward.
JinAir's only real hope right now is to kind of run them around the map with their extra turret damage. KOO's taken a lot of poke. Actually commits to the ultimate. It's not going to be enough damage with just a couple of bolts coming through. Chaser has to back away, so no kill pressure, although Gorilla not quite in range of a headbutt bolt. No,
but Gorilla just chasing JinAir around the map this game. You can see how bold he is on this champion. He wants that 6-game Alistar undefeated win streak.
There's bold and there's committing to the distortion boots early. Now he's going to, of course, pop the ultimate. They're trying to get Trace next to a wall for Prey. They seem distracted between taking down this turret and fighting, and Gorilla's taking a lot of damage.
And there's the ultimates coming in from Nautilus and Rumble, and that'll be Trace with the kill onto Alistar. Prey ults into the backline. He wants to get some of these single targets down. Smeb on the outside finds GBM, tries to sidestep the Q, goes down anyway, and the KOO Tigers in a bit of a rough state around this tower right now. Cassiopeia is coming up, and that means JinAir is going to have to back off. They see KOO has left the mid lane, and KOO going to get some free jungle camps and tower pressure in mid, and in spite of all that, KOO maintain their position on this very low top lane turret.
So KOO had fallen low. We saw the engage onto him after GBM missed the ultimate around. Decided to stay in lane, just use his passive to heal up a little bit. Wow, Wisdom takes a lot of damage. The ult's available again. 2 bolts, has to flash. Third one goes wide. GBM, you can see that his confidence is up. It's probably what he's been practicing. But if we see the replay, Gorilla takes a lot of damage for free, and Prey isn't committing to this engage.
No, he's not. Wants to get that turret down instead. Smeb right now on the outside. Gorilla, everyone splits off, so they're not actually knocked up, but his ult falls off right while the equalizer goes down. JinAir with a very decisive engage. Locks Smeb up. Smeb does get a kill onto Rek'Sai. And now we're going to look at the top side of this fight. Pretty late ultimate there from Evelynn, actually. Wisdom not doing much with that after everyone's already so low. And then JinAir holding on to the turret for now.
And I can understand the game plan from JinAir. They recognize that, okay, they've got a Vayne. They've got Cassiopeia, who has decent wave clear, but no real immediate wave clear like, for example, Siv's kit will provide, Xerath's kit will provide. In general, the wave clear on JinAir's side is massive. So even in the late game, they should have a lot of stall tactics. Now, necessarily, are there team fights that JinAir win? It's possible. We've already talked about the fact that Team Comp has pretty low risk in terms of actually being able to get onto the Vayne in the late game. But if you pull it out long enough, a lot of teams have shown this. Even KD Rolster in that series against LZIM. One mistake late game. They're certainly able to turtle with this comp.
And not only that, but if they catch somebody out with the poke and they get a Baron, their siege is going to be absolutely ridiculous. It will be unstoppable pretty much from the KOO Tigers unless they can get a big Evelyn Maokai flank in. So there's that aspect to consider as well. As long as JinAir does a good job of clearing out the wards from possible engage positions and pink warding their flanks, they could take it. But they have to get that perfect poke off to get an objective, and that is going to be challenging. They also just can't leave vision off this Baron for even a second right now. Cassiopeia, Vayne. This is going to kill the Baron nearly instantly for the KOO Tigers, and they can tank it with the Alistar ultimate, so they can come out of a fight as well at nearly full HP, even this early in the game.
Entirety of the gold lead basically is relying on Smeb. Equalizer only build comes through from Trace. It's necessitated by the fact that he has less gold. No threat of picking up Azonias and even being able to sort of dive onto the Vayne. What this translates to me, Monte Cristo, is that Prey should be able to free hit most of these fights. There's just no real way to do damage, barring GBM focusing him out in a fight, and that's going to be difficult and very hard to perform.
KOO should try and trade this Dragon for a Baron if they can. They can certainly do it in the time frame that JinAir can do the Dragon. And they're starting to clear out wards around the pit, so JinAir not really able to commit to a Dragon right now, and they should be so scared of this objective going down. So with that, they bait him to the other side of the map, make a rush at the Dragon. Everyone on JinAir is scrambling to get there right now. Sivir will be last, and that's going to be a drag. There's nothing they can do.
And you can see so much zoning potential from the Maokai and Alistar in the front. Very good positioning from them. That's 3 Dragons now that have Rumble come put down. It's a really nice equalizer, splitting up the threats. Once again, Gorilla's left his own devices, and Vayne is not grouped.
She is now Prey coming in from the rear. Smeb starts the engage. Chaser caught out in the front line. Prey starting to dive through the composition. Trace not able to get much on the outside. Prey turns around after picking up another kill onto Che. They don't want to commit to this anymore. Push up the mid lane instead is going to be their action. And will they go for this Baron? Chaser's not here. They have 15 seconds. Looks like they just want to take a red buff and recall.
The big factor is no blue buff available on KOO. It just expired, so very, very risky to DPS down that Baron. Okay, a lot of single target DPS onto a neutral from Cassiopeia, but without the blue, you just can't peel away.
And take a look. We do see the Rylai's for KOO right here, giving him some extra tankiness. That's so good against the burst from JinAir. And not only that, but gives Prey so much more room to maneuver than he already has. This is such an easy game to play Vayne in.
So when you finish Rylai's and your Seraphs, which is already available, is fully charged, you're talking about effectively 2,500 health for this Cassiopeia. Already has Abyssal Scepter, so Magic is just going to be working very well with the shield and the flat health you've picked up. What this allows him to do, just to be so much more aggressive with that position. If you go a full AP build, say the Seraph's Embrace into the Death Cap, you're just going to be exploded by GBM, even if only a couple of his skill shots hit. Can be so much more aggressive. And we saw in the previous fight, Prey, free hitting for the vast majority of the fight. It's only an item like Zhonya's on Rumble or a big miss position from Prey, which, okay, he's done a couple of times this season, but with such low threat, he should be able to run wild in these fights.
I also love the fact that there's a distortion enchantment already, because KOO, there's such a squishy composition from JinAir. He just needs that one flash ult to absolutely shut down all the damage threats from JinAir. So he knows his place this game, and Cassiopeia, sure, does a lot of damage, has a lot of versatility in builds, is super dangerous with that Luden's Echo, but he doesn't have to provide it. Instead, his sustained crowd control with a Rylai's, his frequency of being able to use that petrifying gaze with a flash onto the backline, much more valuable for the Tigers.
All they have is GBM pulling off miracles on Xerath, and at 3-0 and 2, working towards a Void Staff, he still has instant kill pressure on these squishy members like the Vayne. If he can account for the Vayne, he's the only one truly with backline threat, which sounds comical, but given just his long range, only some miracle play, will they be able to take down Vayne? And there's so many win conditions being stacked by KOO. They have the 3 dragons. They have the Baron threat, like you mentioned. We're looking for miracles from JinAir.
Absolutely. And now those miracles are going to be dwindling too as Prey gets more magic resist. The Aegis has been done for quite some time. From the KOO Tigers, that early build, going to be doing a lot of work. And this is another game where we see how good GBM is at Xerath. He's had a very good game on Xerath, but it's also why Xerath is not a meta pick right now.
And we've seen, when I was in watching the LPL, very similar games where you pick that Xerath for lane, but it just doesn't translate in team fights, whether it's the big dive like Maokai Hecarim. They're doing a lot of damage to this Baron. Only now is their vision. They're seeing the teleport coming in from Maokai. We still don't see him on our screen. In the backline onto Chaser. Chaser taking a lot of damage. Prey is at no risk whatsoever, but GBM's trying to kite back.
And look at this too. Prey gets the isolated target on the side. Kuro and Wisdom now coming through the opposite choke. Smeb wants this. They're all in a line, but Trace solo will get picked off eventually. Kuro trying to dodge right here. There's the ultimate, and they will barely not kill Prey. Flash boomerang blade won't finish him off. Smeb left on his own, but he's going to take down Che pretty easily, and I'm not sure they're going to actually be able to kill Smeb right here as Smeb dances around all these skill shot. Gorilla on the other side of the wall does come in, thrown right next to Wisdom. Gorilla with the flash play to get the kill onto Jack.
Just an insane fight. It went on for so long. Excellent kiting back by JinAir. I didn't even know they had the venues to do so. Now Trace is comically out of position. GBM is close though. The poison registers. Kuro knows he's here. And we're waiting to see what will happen. Wisdom is low. Trace doesn't have the scrap shield available. Is taken down. And that's
really nice play. I mean, GBM had to use his skill shot onto the Cassiopeia when he could have killed Wisdom. But Wisdom had the damage to come in and follow it during GBM's cooldown. So nice hunt on a difficult situation from JinAir.
And JinAir's play around terrain has been super impressive.
Watch this. This is the key to this fight right here. Gorilla and Wisdom are going to clog the choke where the rumble is, while Smeb and Prey are going to go to work onto Chaser on the side. Look at that first kill. JinAir not really able to do anything besides drop a rumble ultimate as they follow up.
But they're able to kite back. This is what they tried to do around Dragon. Finally, KOO does take the bait, and you can see the chunks coming through from the Xerath. A massive, watch this side steps here. The first one registered, there could have been a potential double kill, but smart of KOO to move in opposite directions. Captain Jack goes for the flash, hopes to get the kill. They eventually take down Smeb, but I like the fact that JinAir at least reacted well, tried to use what they have, which is strong damage around terrain and short ranges on KOO. It just wasn't quite enough.
That's right. Once they saw themselves being split up and the danger that Vayne presented, they started to pull back, regroup into a choke point, and that was very nearly a big JinAir win. Even Jack with the flash boomerang blade could have picked up a double. 3 members of the KOO Tigers at such low health could have gone really either way.
That's why we're excited that even though KOO seemed to have outpicked them, at least in terms of how the team comp stack up, and played the early game well, execution heavy is something we leveled a lot of teams. This Rumble's gone full execution. It's literally Leandri's into voice up. It's hit that equalizer or being relatively useless.
That's right. Well, they're coming in right now. 4th Dragon of the game, again picked up by Prey. Smeb just going to back off after blowing the Righteous Glory. KOO knows they don't have to fight right now. They don't want to play a game where they just get drawn into more of these choke points and poked.
All JinAir can do is look for a fight in a choke, but by the time that happens, we might be talking about a 5th Dragon. We might be talking about a Baron buff being picked up. There is immediate risk clumping up around the Baron with all the magic damage from both Xerath and Rumble raining down the equalizer. But this is the only area that JinAir can fight around. So if they're just smart, disengage from that Baron and look for a fight away from a choke, KOO should take this.
And the side wave control, one of the things we brought up about KOO, the side waves once again bearing down on their enemies' turrets. Really good preparation of the minions to maximize the pressure at this Baron.
Yeah, you can see in the top lane, very nice minion wave. We'll push in about 40 seconds to a minute's time. They're going to wait to see who shows up on the map. Captain Jack has to use his pink ward just to get any hope of vision in this particular area. They're still not responding to those waves.
Look at the timing. Rek'Sai on the bottom side, massive minion wave in the top lane. Such a good position to do this Baron from GBM. Will get found out by a sapling. Now Gorilla healing up his teammates, taking a little bit of poke damage, but that's going to be a Baron because of the map play there. And now the fight's going to start. Smeb onto Captain Jack. Captain Jack in the front line just gets chain CC'd as he's knocked around by Gorilla's Alistair. KOO finds Che all alone on the side. And there are that skirmish pickups that JinAir really didn't want to see come through, but now KOO Tiger is just going to power down the mid lane, and they may get that top tier 2 as well, just due to that side wave.
Just executed perfectly, Monte Cristo. I know you love the side waves, both of us do, but they've prepped everything, and JinAir was in a lose-lose situation. Do they react to these waves and lose Baron? Do they eventually try to fight after you've been chunked out by the Baron? Oh no, you're fighting in this open area. The Equalizer only really delays Prey getting to the fight. Jack falls down first, the inhibitor falls down from JinAir. This KOO Tigers, they were absent for the first, 4 or 5 series they played this season, but suddenly they've filled those strategic holes, they've sharpened those mechanics and really been strong, or at least even in the laning phase, and this late game KOO team fighting identity is just coming out more and more.
And their shot calling is just so on point, the way they prepare 3 minutes ahead. This is their ability that we've seen to come back from deficits, and it's magnified even more when they have that early game advantage. And not only that, they've gone away from that big, like, poke style, the big Trinity Force power spike or tier power spike style, and gone for 2 late game carries and a big late game tank, and they're pulling it off.
And the acid test, just talking to you pre-game for you, was can they win without the Corkis? Can they win without the Rumbles of the world? And the answer here, I mean, Vayne just about as far away from Corki in terms of AD carry identity as you can be, going for that auto attack based Silver Bolts proccing AD carry over the Corki. Captain Jack's caught out now. He's famously strong at those spell shield mechanics, will get away in this situation, but it's just another minion wave that Smeb's going to be prepping for the siege to continue.
That's right, and there's still super minions that JinAir is going to have to deal with here in the mid lane. Everyone's starting to pile up on the side. Minion wave, it looks like it will be slowly pushing towards the tier 1 of the KOO Tigers, but that should be cleared out by the turret. It isn't too big at this point. I don't think they're going to send anybody into the top side for that one. Just keep up with this siege, and as fantastic as the wave clear of JinAir is, when they have to send someone into the mid lane, it's a lot more dangerous, and the dive potential here is huge from KOO as well.
It's interesting they sent Wisdom to be the one to threaten the turret dive. Now, of course,
I would have sent Gorilla.
Exactly, you can be sinned by the Rek'Sai Tremor since you don't have quite the same scariness. They're getting a lot of damage onto this inhibitor turret. Smeb takes free damage, hoping for Prey in the short range Vayne to get the turret. They get it, and we should see an engage.
And there goes Gorilla, double knock-up. Trace goes down nearly immediately, gets obliterated by KOO. KOO with the double kill, just moving on through the composition, and that is going to be a turret and more than likely a game win. Prey low, but not low enough to actually prevent him from attacking these objectives. Gets a little bit of lifesteal. There is going to go the Nexus. The KOO Tigers with a very measured, convincing Game 1 win against the JinAir Green Wings.
We talked about GBM on this earth, did not die during that game 3-0-4, but predictably, with the backline threat of the Maokai, of the Evelynn, even the flash engages from KOO on the Cassiopeia, just zoned out of doing damage. 7 out of 8 kill participation, but Xerath did well in lane, but just could not get it done in team fights.
Well, I know how this story goes. I said it perfectly. It's another great game from GBM Xerath. It's another game where